Have you ever felt that sudden, sinking feeling in your stomach when you realize something's not right? Something involving your child that you never imagined you'd face? Do you sometimes lie awake, wondering if you're truly connecting with your kids on the things that matter? Or if there are hidden struggles they're not sharing? What's that one parenting moment you dread? The one that makes you question everything you thought you knew about your family and your child. Today, we're going to talk about one of those moments, a really tough one, discovering your child has taken money without asking. It's a discovery that can bring up a whirlwind of emotions, confusion, anger, disappointment, and maybe even a little bit of fear about what it means. It can feel like a betrayal, a small crack in the foundation of trust you've worked so hard to build. So, in our conversation today, we're going to walk through this together. First, we'll try to understand some of the common reasons why a child might take money. It's often not as simple as just wanting more stuff. Then, we'll explore how to approach that incredibly difficult first conversation after you've made the discovery, focusing on connection rather than just confrontation. After that, we'll look at practical ways to rebuild trust and teach important lessons about responsibility and honesty. And finally, we'll touch on when this behavior might signal something deeper that needs a different kind of attention. My hope is that by the end of our time, you'll feel less alone with this, more equipped with gentle but effective strategies, and ultimately, more confident in your ability to navigate this challenge in a way that strengthens your relationship with your child, rather than damages it. We're aiming for understanding, practical tools, and a real sense of hope that you can guide your child through this and come out stronger on the other side. So let's start by trying to get inside our kids' heads a little bit. Why does this happen? What could be going on beneath the surface when a child makes the choice to take money? It's so easy to jump to conclusions, isn't it? To think, my child is dishonest, or I failed somewhere. But often, especially with younger kids, or even preteens, taking money isn't about a deep-seated character flaw. It can be a symptom of something else. Sometimes it's about impulse control. They see something they desperately want, and their brain, which is still developing that all-important ability to think through consequences, just acts. You know how it is, even for us adults sometimes, that shiny thing calls out. For a child, that pull can be overwhelming, and the part of their brain that says, hey, wait a minute, that's not yours and there will be trouble, isn't fully developed yet. Other times, it might be peer pressure. This is a big one, especially as kids get older. Maybe all their friends are buying a certain popular snack at school or saving up for the latest online game, and your child feels left out, or worse, pressured to keep up. They might not have the confidence to say, I can't afford that, or to ask you for the money, especially if they think you'll say no. It could also simply be a cry for attention. If a child is feeling disconnected, overlooked, or unheard, sometimes acting out, even in a negative way like taking money, can feel like the only way to get noticed. It's not a conscious strategy, usually, but a reflection of an unmet emotional need. For some kids, particularly younger ones, there might even be a genuine misunderstanding of ownership and money. If they see adults in the house casually borrowing small amounts of cash from a wallet or a jar, they might not fully grasp that taking money without explicit permission is wrong. They might think, Mom takes a $5 from Dad's wallet for coffee sometimes, so it's okay if I take $1 for candy. And then there are the harder situations, though less common, where a child might be trying to solve a problem they feel they can't talk to you about. This could be anything from being bullied and needing to pay someone off, to wanting to buy a surprise gift for someone and not knowing how to manage it. Or even, in some rare cases, trying to get money for things they know you wouldn't approve of. The point here isn't to make excuses for the behavior, because taking without asking is never okay. But understanding the potential root cause is absolutely crucial if we're going to address it in a way that actually helps our child learn and grow. So, what can you do to start figuring out that why? First, and this is probably the hardest part, pause before you react. When you discover the money is missing, your own emotions, anger, hurt, betrayal, are going to surge. Take a deep breath. Walk away for a few minutes if you need to. Resist that powerful urge to immediately confront your child in anger or to start laying down accusations. Give yourself a moment to process what you're feeling. Next, really consider your child's age and their developmental stage. A 6-year-old taking $1 from your purse for a gumball has very different cognitive and moral reasoning abilities than a 16-year-old who has systematically taken larger amounts over time. Their understanding of money, ownership, future consequences, and abstract concepts like trust varies hugely. What might be an impulsive act for a younger child could indicate more complex issues for an older one. Before you even approach your child, try to observe and gather a little information. Think about what's been going on in their life recently. Are there any new friends on the scene? Have there been any unusual stresses at school like exams or social conflicts? Have they expressed any unfulfilled wants or needs lately that seemed particularly intense? Have you noticed them suddenly having new possessions you can't account for, or seeming to have more spending money than usual? This isn't about becoming a detective in a suspicious way, but about trying to see the bigger picture. And finally, take a moment to reflect on your family's culture around money. How is money handled in your home? Do your children receive an allowance? Do they have regular opportunities to earn money for chores? Are there clear, consistent rules and discussions about personal property, saving, and spending? Sometimes a lack of clarity or established norms around money can inadvertently contribute to a child making a poor choice. Think about 8-year-old Lily. Her mom finds a $5 bill missing from her wallet. Her first instinct is to be absolutely furious and to ground Lily for a month. But after she takes a few deep breaths and calms down, she remembers that Lily was really upset last week because all her friends got a special new slime kit at the school book fair, and Lily didn't have money for it at that moment. The taking was absolutely wrong, and there will be consequences, but the why was likely rooted in a desire to fit in and a momentary, powerful lapse of judgment, not in a desire to be a bad kid. Or consider 12-year-old Mark, whose parents started noticing money disappearing from the family's summer vacation jar they kept on the kitchen counter. It turned out, after a very difficult conversation, that Mark was being pressured by an older kid at the local skate park to buy him snacks and drinks every day. And Mark was too scared and ashamed to tell his parents. The stealing, in this case, was a symptom of a much bigger, scarier problem he was facing. Understanding the why is a crucial first step. But then comes the actual conversation with your child. How do you even begin to talk about this in a way that's productive and doesn't just make them shut down or become more secretive? This is probably the conversation every parent dreads. Your heart is pounding. You might feel incredibly angry, deeply betrayed, or profoundly disappointed. But how you approach this first conversation can make all the difference in the outcome. Not just for this incident, but for your long-term relationship with your child. The goal isn't just to get a confession or to mete out a punishment. It's to open a genuine dialogue, to understand what happened from their perspective, to teach a crucial life lesson about honesty and respect, and to begin the delicate process of repairing the trust that's been damaged. Think of it as a connection conversation rather than an interrogation or a lecture. You want to try and create a space where your child feels safe enough to tell you the truth, even if that truth is hard for them to admit and for you to hear. This means trying as much as humanly possible to manage your own intense emotions so you can respond calmly, thoughtfully, and constructively. Remember, underneath any bravado or denial, your child is likely feeling scared, ashamed, or guilty, even if they don't show it in a way you recognize. So how do you set the stage for this kind of conversation? First, choose the right time and place. Don't try to have this incredibly sensitive discussion when you're rushing to get out the door, when you're exhausted at the end of a long day, or, importantly, in front of other people, like siblings or friends. Find a quiet, private moment when you can both focus without interruptions or an audience. Maybe it's after dinner when things have settled down, or on a quiet weekend morning. The environment should feel as non-threatening as possible. When you begin, try to start with an observation, not an immediate accusation. Instead of launching in with, "Did you steal my money?" which is guaranteed to put them on the defensive and make them want to clam up. Try something gentler, like, "Honey, I've noticed some money missing from my purse over the last few days, and I'm trying to understand what happened. Can you help me figure this out?" Or if you have a more specific instance, "I'm feeling a bit worried and confused because there was a $20 bill on the kitchen counter this morning, and now it's gone. Do you know anything about where it might have gone?" Use I statements to express how you feel about the situation, rather than you statements that sound blaming. For example, "When I realize money is gone, and I don't know why, it makes me feel worried and also a little sad, because trust is something that's really important in our family." This is much less likely to provoke defensiveness than saying, "You made me angry by taking my money." Then, and this is key, listen more than you talk, at least in the initial part of the conversation. Give them a genuine chance to explain themselves, to tell their side of the story. They might deny it at first, especially if they're scared. Try to stay calm and patient. You can say something like, "I understand it might be hard to talk about this, but it's really important that we're honest with each other in our family." If you have clear evidence, you can present it calmly and factually, not as a weapon. For instance, "I know this is a tough conversation, but I did see you near my wallet right before I noticed the money was gone, and that's why I'm concerned." Throughout the conversation, focus on the behavior, the act of taking, rather than labeling your child's character. It's not "you are a thief" or "you're a dishonest person," but rather, taking something that doesn't belong to you without asking is not an okay thing to do. This crucial distinction separates the action from their fundamental identity, which is so important for their self-esteem and their belief that they can change and make better choices in the future. And if they do admit it, and especially if they express remorse, fear, or shame, acknowledge those feelings. "I can see that you feel bad about this, and actually, that's a good sign. It tells me that deep down you understand it wasn't the right thing to do, and that you value honesty." This validation can make it easier for them to fully own their mistake. Imagine Sarah, a mom of a 10-year-old boy named Ben. She finds out he took money from her desk drawer, and her online banking shows he used it to buy a new skin for his favorite video game. Instead of yelling at him the moment he walks in from school, she waits until after dinner. She sits down with him in the living room and says, "Ben, I was really surprised, and honestly, a little hurt today to find that some money from my drawer was used to buy that new game online. Can you tell me what was going through your mind when you decided to do that?" Ben, initially very defensive and denying it, eventually crumbles under her calm but serious gaze and admits he knew he shouldn't have. But he really, really wanted that game because all his friends were talking about it and he felt left out. This approach opened up a conversation about responsible ways to get things he wants and the importance of trust, rather than just a one-sided lecture and punishment. Or think about David, whose teenage daughter, Emily, he suspects has taken a significant amount of cash he was saving for a home repair, likely for concert tickets she desperately wanted, but he'd said they couldn't afford right now. He started by saying, "We need to talk about something pretty serious. I've noticed a large amount of money is missing from the envelope in my office, and I also know how much you wanted to go to that concert next month. I'm feeling really concerned and disappointed right now. Can we talk honestly about what happened? His calm but firm and serious tone, combined with expressing his own feelings, allowed Emily to eventually break down, admit what she'd done, and express her shame. This paved the way for a difficult but productive discussion about trust, consequences, and finding better ways to handle disappointment. So you've had the conversation, and hopefully you have a better understanding of what happened and why. Your child has ideally taken responsibility for their actions. The next step, and it's a big one, is figuring out how to move forward. This involves consequences, yes, but just as importantly, it involves teaching lasting lessons and, crucially, rebuilding that precious commodity of trust. Once the truth is out, it's not just about saying don't do it again and moving on. For your child to truly learn from this experience, there needs to be a clear understanding that actions have consequences, and a significant part of that is making amends for the wrongdoing. This is where the concept of restitution comes in. How will your child make right what they did wrong? This isn't just about punishment for punishment's sake. It's about teaching responsibility, accountability, and empathy. It helps them understand the impact of their actions on others. It's also the very beginning of the journey to rebuild trust, which, let's be perfectly honest, takes time and consistent, dedicated effort from both you and your child. Your child needs to see that trust isn't just given back. It has to be earned back through their actions, and you need to be open and willing to allow them the opportunity to do that. First, determine a fair and logical consequence for the action. The most logical consequence for taking money is almost always repaying the money. If they don't have the money immediately available, say from savings or allowance, they need a clear way to earn it back. This could be through performing extra chores around the house. And these should be extra chores, tasks that go above and beyond their regular family contributions, specifically designated to repay the debt. If they receive an allowance, it might be partially or fully withheld until the amount taken is completely repaid. The consequence should feel proportionate to the mistake and focused on restoration. Next, it's really helpful to discuss and agree on the repayment plan with your child, especially if they're older, say 10 or above. Involving them in figuring out how they will make restitution gives them a sense of ownership over the solution and makes it feel less like a purely punitive measure being imposed on them. You could say something like, "Okay, you took $20. That money needs to be repaid. How do you think you can earn that back and make things right?" While the consequence is being carried out, keep the focus on the lesson, not just on the punishment. Explain or re-explain why taking things that don't belong to you is wrong. Talk about how it violates trust, how it can hurt the person who is taken from, and how it's not fair to others who work for the things they have. Connect it directly to your family values. You might say, "In our family, we believe in honesty and respecting each other's belongings and feelings. When money is taken without asking, it breaks that trust and makes it hard for us to feel safe and respected in our own home." It's also vital to talk about trust explicitly. Explain that trust is like a piggy bank. It takes a long, long time to fill it up with small acts of honesty, reliability, and good deeds. But one dishonest act, like taking money, can feel like smashing the piggy bank and emptying it all at once. And then, it takes time, patience, and a lot of consistent, trustworthy behavior to slowly start filling it up again, coin by coin. Then consciously create opportunities for your child to demonstrate their trustworthiness. This doesn't mean you stop being vigilant overnight, especially if the trust has been significantly broken. But you also can't micromanage them forever, or they'll never learn. After a period of consistent good behavior and once restitution is made, look for small, low-risk ways they can show they've learned their lesson. Maybe you entrust them with a small amount of money for a specific agreed-upon purpose, like buying a particular item at the store, and see how they handle that responsibility. And very importantly, acknowledge their efforts to make amends and behave responsibly. When they diligently follow through on the repayment plan, or when you see them making honest choices, make sure to notice and mention it. A simple, "I really appreciate that you've been doing all your extra chores without complaining to pay back the money. That shows me you're taking this seriously and that you're committed to making things right," can be incredibly powerful. Finally, reinforce positive and appropriate ways for them to get what they want or need in the future. If the act of taking was linked to an unfulfilled want, like that video game or a special snack, use this as a teachable moment to discuss how they can achieve those things in acceptable ways. This might involve talking about saving their allowance, asking for certain items for a birthday or holiday, or perhaps doing extra paid chores around the house if that's an established option in your family. When 9-year-old Maya took $10 from her mom's purse to buy candy for herself and her best friend after school, her mom had her pay it back by doing several extra jobs around the house over the next week. These included helping to wash the car on Saturday and meticulously sorting all the recycling for pickup, tasks that were definitely outside her usual responsibilities. They also had a long talk about how Maya could have asked for a treat, or how she might feel if her friend had stolen something from her. Her mom also helped her set up a small savings jar for fun money. For 15-year-old Sam, who took $50 from his dad's wallet to buy a new, expensive video game he knew his parents wouldn't approve of, the consequence was repaying the full amount from his part-time job earnings over the next month. His parents also had a very serious conversation with him about the significant impact this had on their trust, and as a result, they temporarily restricted his access to unsupervised cash and put tighter controls on his online accounts. They then worked with Sam to agree on a clear plan where, over the next few months, he'd have specific, agreed-upon opportunities to show he was rebuilding that trust, like being responsible for managing the budget for a family pizza night or handling errands that involved money. Dealing with the immediate aftermath, the conversation, the consequences, the repayment, is absolutely vital. But sometimes, this behavior isn't just a one-off mistake. It can be a red flag for something more, or it might unfortunately develop into a pattern. So it's also really important for us as parents to know when we might need to look a little deeper, or even seek some outside help and support. Most of the time, a child taking money once or perhaps twice, especially when they're younger and still learning about boundaries and consequences, is a mistake they can genuinely learn from with thoughtful guidance from you. But what if it keeps happening despite conversations and consequences? Or what if the amounts of money being taken are large and significant? What if the stealing is accompanied by other worrying behaviors, like frequent lying about other things? Unusual aggression or irritability, sudden withdrawal from family or usual activities, or a concerning change in their group of friends. Sometimes, repeated stealing can be a sign of deeper underlying issues that need more than just standard parental discipline. It could be related to undiagnosed or unmanaged impulse control disorders like ADHD, where the child genuinely struggles to resist immediate urges. It could be linked to emotional difficulties such as anxiety or depression. A child might be trying to self-medicate with purchases, or attempting to buy friendship or acceptance if they're feeling insecure or isolated. In some, less frequent cases, it could be an early indicator of more serious conduct problems. It's incredibly important to remember that you are not expected to be a child psychologist or a therapist. Recognizing when a situation seems to be escalating beyond typical misbehavior, or when your efforts just aren't making a difference, and then seeking professional insight. That's a sign of strong, responsible parenting, not a sign of failure. So, what are some practical steps if you're starting to feel concerned? First, if it happens more than once, start keeping a simple, factual log of the incidents. Note down when it happened, how much money was taken, any surrounding circumstances you're aware of, and how you addressed it. This isn't about building a case against your child, but about helping you, and potentially a professional, see if there's a discernible pattern or triggers. Next, consciously look for other behavioral changes. Is the stealing an isolated issue, or does it seem to be part of a larger picture of concerning behavior? Are their grades suddenly slipping at school? Are they becoming unusually secretive, withdrawn, or spending a lot more time alone? Are their friendships changing in a way that makes you uncomfortable? A cluster of changes is often more telling than a single behavior. Also, consider the severity and frequency. A young child taking a few quarters from a change jar on a couple of occasions is a very different scenario from a teenager who is systematically taking hundreds of dollars over weeks or months, or who has started stealing from outside the home, like from friends or stores. The frequency and the magnitude of the stealing do matter in assessing the seriousness. Before you jump to conclusions about deeper psychological issues, make sure you've thoroughly explored and ruled out any persistent unmet needs or significant external pressures. Are they truly hungry and taking lunch money because they genuinely don't have enough food provided? Are they facing intense bullying or peer pressure that they feel unable to cope with or disclose? Sometimes, addressing these external factors can resolve the stealing. It's also crucial to talk to your child's other parent or primary caregiver, if applicable. Share your concerns and observations openly. A united front, shared understanding, and consistent approach between parents are incredibly important when dealing with challenging behaviors. And then, please, if you are genuinely concerned, do not hesitate to consult with a trusted professional. This could be your child's pediatrician, who can often provide initial guidance or referrals. It could be a school counselor, who may have insights into your child's behavior and social dynamics at school. Or it could be a child psychologist, therapist, or family counselor. These professionals can offer an objective perspective, help to determine if there's an underlying issue that needs addressing, and suggest appropriate interventions or support strategies for both your child and your family. Remember, it's so easy to fall into the trap of blaming yourself if your child is struggling with a persistent behavioral issue. But the most important thing you can do is to get them the help and support they need. Focus on finding solutions and providing that support, not on assigning blame to yourself or your child. Think about the Jacksons. They noticed that 14-year-old son Alex had taken money from them several times over a period of about 3 months. It wasn't just from their wallets. They found out he'd also taken money from his grandmother when she visited. Alongside this, Alex had become very moody. His grades had plummeted, and he'd stopped hanging out with his old friends. They were worried sick. They decided to talk to his school counselor, who listened carefully and then recommended they see a family therapist. It turned out, after several sessions, that Alex was struggling with significant social anxiety and was using the money to buy expensive clothes and gadgets he thought would make him feel better or more popular with a new, edgier crowd. Therapy helped Alex develop healthier coping mechanisms for his anxiety and learn better social skills. Or consider Mariah, a single mom whose 7-year-old son Leo started taking small amounts of money from her purse almost every other day. She initially handled it with clear consequences and talks about honesty, but the behavior continued. Feeling overwhelmed, she talked to his second-grade teacher. The teacher mentioned that Leo often didn't have a snack during snack time when many other kids did, and sometimes seemed envious. Mariah, who was on a very tight budget, hadn't fully realized how much this was affecting Leo. She made some adjustments to her budget to ensure he always had a good, healthy snack. And she also started him on a very small weekly allowance, so he had a little bit of money of his own to manage and learn about. The stealing stopped almost immediately. In this case, it wasn't a deep psychological issue, but a genuine unmet need that, once addressed, resolved the problematic behavior. Navigating these situations is undoubtedly one of the tougher parts of parenting, isn't it? It really tests our patience, our wisdom, and our ability to stay connected with our kids, even when we're feeling deeply disappointed, frustrated, or worried. This journey of discovering your child has taken money. It's a path that can feel really lonely and unsettling. It touches on so many of our deepest hopes for our children, that they grow up to be honest, responsible, and trustworthy individuals. And when something like this happens, it can shake our confidence, both in them and in ourselves as parents. But if there's one thing I hope you take away from our conversation today, it's that these moments, as challenging and painful as they are also profound opportunities. They are opportunities to teach incredibly important life lessons, opportunities to connect with your child on a deeper level than you might have before, and opportunities to actively reinforce the values that are most important to your family. It's rarely, if ever, about a bad kid. It's almost always about a child who's learning, who is testing boundaries as part of growing up, or who is struggling with something they don't yet have the words or the skills to manage in a more constructive way. Approaching these challenges with a heart that's open to understanding, with a commitment to guiding rather than just punishing. That's where the real parenting magic happens. It's about consistently working to build that bridge of communication and trust, especially when it feels like there's a crack or even a chasm in the foundation. You are not alone in this. So many parents face similar challenges, even if they don't talk about it openly at school pickup or soccer practice. You have the capacity within you to navigate this with grace and effectiveness. Remember, your relationship with your child is resilient. It's built on a foundation of love that's stronger than any single mistake. This one event, or even a few related events, doesn't define your child's character, nor does it define your success as a parent. It's a chance to guide them, to help them learn a critical life lesson about integrity and responsibility, and to ultimately strengthen your bond by showing them that your love and support are steadfast, even when they make mistakes, perhaps especially when they make mistakes. Trust your instincts, lead with empathy, and know that you are doing the hard, important, and often unglamorous work of raising a human being. You've got this. Every conversation, every lesson learned, every single moment we choose connection over condemnation, you are building something truly beautiful and strong within your family. Is this conversation resonated with you? Or if you found something helpful here that you can take into your own family life, we'd be so grateful if you'd give this video a like. And if you know another parent who might be navigating similar waters, who might be feeling a bit lost or alone with this kind of challenge, please feel free to share it with them. We're all in this together, trying to do our best for our kids. And of course, if you'd like more conversations like this, focused on strengthening family connections and navigating the beautiful, often messy, and incredibly rewarding journey of parenting, please subscribe to Family Connection Hub. We'd love to have you as part of our community, learning and growing together.